Hi everyone, it's me, Roland Redneck, here with some Tetris. We know what that means. I got something on my mind. Now, as some of you know, I will be going to DC with a disability rights group to advocate for the Latanya Reeves Freedom Act. For those who don't know, the Latanya Reeves Freedom Act will make it so that insurance companies and Medicare and Medicaid will have to default to helping disabled people live in their own communities rather than defaulting to nursing homes the way they do now. What they do now is pretty bad because most nursing homes are run pretty terribly. But this, as I see it, is another struggle in the long battle disabled people have had to fight for the presumption of competence. Presumption of competence is basically the idea that disabled people know what they're doing and they can take care of their own affairs. Most people live with this privilege. Disabled people, less so. I sound like Dr. Frank there for a minute. But what brings this topic to my mind right now is noticing how many people fight for the presumption of incompetence in their everyday life. Here's what I mean. Ever deal with that old guy at your reunion that says bigoted nonsense, and when he's called on it, everybody's like, "Oh, you can't be too mean to Uncle Billy Bob Danny Frank. You didn't know that what he was saying was racist." Yes, he did. He's from the different times. That's what I mean by fighting for the presumption of incompetence. A lot of these people who, unlike the disabled community, they have political, financial, and social capital, yet they are always fighting for the presumption of incompetence. Like, ever see the news stories about wage theft, or some employer stiffing his workers, and his immediate defense is, "Oh, I couldn't be expected to know all the labor laws. I'm just so stupid and there's so many laws. Boo-hoo!" Or the farmer who's dumping literal pig crap everywhere. Being like, "Oh, I can't be expected to follow all these farming laws. It's just so much." Heck, we even have a former president right now who has spent the last couple of years fighting for the presumption of his incompetence. Yes, the orange guy. Half of his defense at the trial was that he couldn't be expected to know the election laws and he couldn't know that what he was doing was illegal. There was just so many laws. It's an outrage that I have to know and follow all these laws to run for the highest office in the frickin' world. Why? Woe is me. And as someone part of a community who has spent their entire lives fighting and sometimes dying or being beaten by police to get the presumption of competence, I am running out of words because it's the first 5 minutes of the video and YouTube gets mad if I say certain words. Gotta appease those soccer moms somehow, I guess. But it's wild to me that all these people with social and political and financial money and ways to influence people, they actively fight for the right to be presumed incompetent. And I think that's why they're so reluctant to give disabled people the right to be presumed competent. Because they think we will use the presumption of competence the way they do, and they use it like a suit that they can take off at their earliest convenience whenever they get caught screwing up. And I hate to tell some people, but that's not how presumption of competence works. We fought for the presumption of competence, knowing full well that meant that if we screwed up, we are responsible for our actions and whatever happens. And we also know darn well that if we were to successfully plead incompetent to any sort of serious thing, like let's say one of us tried to overthrow the federal government for some reason wearing Viking horns or whatever the heck that guy was wearing, and then tried to pretend to be schizophrenic, we wouldn't be going to a mental institution for a couple months and going back to living with our parents who would nurture us and our conspiracy theories. That's not how that would work for us. Here's how it would work for us if we successfully pled incompetent to a crime. We would not be going back to our lives. We would, in all likelihood, be spending the rest of our lives either in a mental institution and or in a nursing home because we just said that we were too stupid to understand why our actions were illegal. And unlike when able people do that nonsense, the legal system really doesn't like it when disabled people try to pull the we were too stupid to know what we were doing was illegal defense. Because that's what all this is. The former guy tried to play that he was incompetent to understand election laws. All of his surrogates were like, oh, well, so many people can commit so many felonies in a day without knowing it. Now, that may or may not be true, but if you're running for high office, I think you should avoid committing felonies. And if you're not competent enough to understand that you're committing felonies, maybe you're not ready for the whole presidenting thing. Maybe try presidenting the local homeowner association. But maybe it is time we start enforcing legal and social consequences for the various privileged people that manage to somehow plead incompetence whenever they get caught doing something stupid. Like, if old man Billy Bob wants to plead that he's too incompetent to know that he's using racial or sexual slurs at the family reunion, okay, fine, but Uncle Billy Bob may not be able to manage his own financial affairs. If the guy stiffing his workers is pleading that he's too stupid to understand all the laws that prevent him from stiffing his workers, maybe it's time that he goes to a day program and not to his business. If the farmer is too stupid to understand that he can't dump literal pig waste everywhere in the river, maybe it's time he give up farming and go to an institution for a while. Because disabled people are not able to selectively declare whether they're competent or not, and if they get treated as incompetent for any purpose, be it social or legal, guess what? They've just screwed up their own lives. And maybe it is time to enforce similar consequences for when all these privileged abled people manage to pull the "I'm just too stupid to understand what I'm doing is illegal" nonsense. But that's just me. Have a nice day, like and subscribe.